My name is Agnieszka Szóstak. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invite. It's actually my second time here. I was earlier this year at the Login conference, and then I was talking about building media relations. Today we're going to be focusing on Steam Greenlight. Over the past couple of years, I was working as a PR specialist for CD Projekt Red, working on The Witcher and Cyberpunk. But eventually I decided to move on and just started my own company, supporting independent developers mostly at this point, and just to help them to promote their games. Now, when it comes to promotion, probably at some point, especially if you're starting and if you're working on your first game, you're gonna be facing the need of going through Steam Greenlight. And I'm sure a lot of guys are here today to learn how does the process work, how to pass it, how to promote your campaign. But if that's the case, then I'm sorry to tell you that I won't be providing such answers, simply because everything is already there. Just go and Google it. But instead, we're going to be focusing on a couple of things that have been repeated over the years in terms of Steam Greenlight, and something which we could probably call at this point like an urban legend. So developers tell other developers this is how it works, while in fact it doesn't. And one of such things is, I'm sure you heard of it, is that you need to promote your campaign to be successful. This is probably one of the first things you're gonna hear like all the time, where actually, I have a pretty good example to prove you that this is not true, that in fact, you don't have to promote your campaign at all, and still, you're gonna eventually get greenlit anyway. Now, here's a pretty fine example of a game. The game was called Vampire's Guide to Safety, and the studio behind it is a Czech developer called CBE Software. Now, here's the story about the title. They started their Steam Greenlight campaign in September 2012. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but actually the whole Steam Greenlight thing started only a couple of weeks before, in August. So back then, like, nobody knew how to handle it properly, what to do, how does it work. So developers tried to do something like communicating with people, like updating the game, but it was on Steam for a while and it didn't get greenlit like ever. So eventually they just gave up on it. They stopped supporting it, they haven't done anything, they just abandoned the project, they moved on to another things, and all of a sudden they got a notification saying that, hey, the game got greenlit. So how this is even possible for a title that you don't work anymore on, that you don't support, that you don't promote in any way? Well, you have to remember about one simple thing, which is how large Steam these days is. And in February 2015, sadly, no newer data is available, but at the beginning of 2015, Steam announced that they actually have 125 million active users accounts. Just to give you a bigger picture how large this number is, this is actually like the whole population of Japan. Japan currently has something around 126 million people. So imagine that large number of people being able to log into Steam at any time, to just browse through all Steam Greenlight games and just vote for them. This means that all those people can have access to all the games that are currently trying to get votes. And if you ask how many of those games are there at this point, I've checked like on Friday, and it was 1,826 games trying to get votes on Steam Greenlight. With 125 million people, it means that potentially, statistically, every of those games could get like 70,000 votes, like organically, just because people go, visit the website, vote on whatever they like. It's important to note that you don't even need that many votes, but we'll get to that later on. Now, what happened with Vampires was exactly that actually people just voted organically, even though developers didn't support the title anymore. They just visited the website, they liked what they saw, they clicked yes, and that was it. The important note to make, though, is that it took Vampires 2 years to get greenlit. So that's the problem. You just have to remember that back in 2012, of course, the number of Steam users was significantly lower than it is right now. But still, 2 years for any developer is way, way too long. So remember about this. You don't have to promote your campaign just to get greenlit. With such a huge community Steam currently has, you're gonna get greenlit anyway. Sooner or later, it's just gonna happen. But if you plan to get greenlit like fast because of whatever reason, then yes, some sort of a promotion you have to make. Now let's start with what does fast mean. Basing on our experience, these days it can be anything between like a couple of days into 2-3 months, with the average being around 2-3 weeks. So if you're working on a title, if you do some basics, you should get greenlit within like 2-3 weeks. But one of the things that you're probably gonna hear when it comes to promoting your campaign, that will be that you need to get covered by media. And it's perfect to get covered like by leading media outlets. This is what people are going to tell you, that media coverage is the key when it comes to promoting a campaign. Well, pardon my French, but it's bullshit. Now, let's check how many of you guys have been listening to me carefully. And here's the question to the audience. How many games currently are waiting for votes on Steam Greenlight? There you go. The gentleman back there won a prize. We're gonna talk about it later on. Yes, that's 1,826. Another question to you guys. How many times do you think an outlet like, I don't know, Kotaku, covered a Steam Greenlight related news this year? And I mean any news. It might be about game waiting for votes. It might be about Valve. It might be about Greenlight as such. How many times Kotaku this year wrote something about it? Just give me a loud guess. 100. 10 times. 0, less than 5. 20. 20 news stories this year, and about Greenlit as such. Yet again, it wasn't 20 news stories about games waiting for votes. 20 means approximately 2 stories per month for 2,000 games. Well, then how about Polygon? Maybe they got a better result. Any guesses? You guys are pretty optimistic. This part of the whole is pretty optimistic. This is not. 15. And yet again, most of those stories were actually about how does Greenlight work? Is it a good or bad idea? Not necessarily about, hey, this game is actually waiting for your votes. But okay, Steam is PC, is hardcore. So how about we jump into PC Gamer, like a hardcore magazine that's supposed to cover this kind of news? You're getting better at this. 3. But none of those stories, sadly, was about any game waiting for votes. It was only about, is it Greenlight a good or bad thing, and stuff like that. Yeah?
They actually provide coverage of new releases that
yeah. Yeah, it kind of qualifies, but still, if you look at, like, again, it's like related, but not like, you know, a game XYZ is looking for your votes. Rock, Paper, Shotgun wasn't any better. They only had 1 story. And if you look at IGN or GameSpot, exactly like 0. Nada. Not even 1 single story was posted this year in regards to Greenlight. And still, games do get green light. Developers pass the whole process, even without media support, mainstream media, as you can see. So question is, how do they do this? Well, the thing is that the key to success, it's not media coverage, but building a community. So whenever you think about Steam Greenlight, don't focus so much on reach out to the big guys. Don't stress out about the fact that Kotaku or GameSpot haven't mentioned your game. Instead, figure out ways how to communicate with gamers out there, like directly. If you know exactly what kind of a game you're making and then who are your main competitors, try to define where people who are fans of such games gather. Talk to them, post on forums, be active on social media, organize a contest to do a giveaway, organize a Thunderclap campaign, update often, release a free demo, talk with them on Steam forums, do whatever you can to kind of remove the middleman, just talk with them directly. This is what makes you unique, guys. You're not AAA studios that have like tons and tons of people between them and gamers, you can talk with them directly, and this is what gamers love. So make an advantage out of this. And of course, be present on events like this. Showcase your game, gather feedback, and kind of build a community. Important thing to mention here, though, is that a lot of developers think that you should start promoting your Greenlight campaign when you actually launch it. So you announced today that your game is waiting for votes on Greenlight, and this is exactly when you start talking about this. Well, I hate to tell you this, but then it's already too late. Building a community takes time. It won't happen overnight. So what you should actually do when you start and sit and think, I'm going to be making a game, and it's going to be awesome, and this is my dev roadmap, and here are the milestones. This is exactly the time when you actually should sit and think how to promote it, how to communicate it, where, when, and how, including how do you start your Steam Greenlight campaign. Just last night at the GameOn after party, I was talking with a lovely team working on a fantastic card game, and they told me that we've been working on this game for a year now. When should we start promoting it? And what I told them was, you guys are already 1 year too late, because you should have started like a year back, actually planning and thinking how to get things done. So always remember about that. Don't kind of plan your promo campaign at the very last moment, because then yet again, it's already too late. With Steam Greenlight, it's very important to have the community out there being ready to support you and to vote for you once the campaign launch. So if you plan to start building the community once you announce it, it won't work. Now, this is another myth, like being repeated over and over and over again. Developers gonna tell you that if you want to start even thinking about succeeding on Steam Greenlight, then you need to make sure that your game gonna be in top 100 games on Steam Greenlight, that stays there, that's gonna be climbing up all the time. Well, not necessarily. There's a game called Sublight. It's being developed by a Polish team, My Next Games Studio. And they started the Greenlight campaign for the title on September 3rd, I think. And the game got greenlit on September 23rd. So it took them like 20 days. And they never made it to top 100. They weren't even close. And this is because it's not how high you are in the top charts. Just don't focus on that. It really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how well are you doing comparing to other games similar to yours. You might be 500 on the list, but if your direct competitors are even lower, you're going to get greenlit anyway. And it works the same with the amount of votes, like upvotes, yes clicks, the common knowledge or like stuff shared among developers is the belief that you need around 2,000 to 5,000 yes votes to pass, to be greenlit. Well, getting back to Sublight again, 20 days for the campaign, and they actually got 522 votes. And that was enough, and they got greenlit. Sounds like too much still? Well done, meet Black Bobby the Hall. This game only needed 303 votes, to be exact. Now, think about it. How many Facebook friends you guys have? I'm getting close to like 800. And just to make it clear, I don't blindly accept every Facebook request I get. These are mostly people I either personally know or have been working with, or I am working with them. 800 myself, probably people here with 2, 3, 500. Now, what I'm trying to say is that these days, to get your game greenlit, you pretty much need your Facebook friends to vote for it. And if you cannot make your Facebook friends to spend a second of their time to click the yes button, which costs them nothing, then you should start making games and move on to something else. Because if you cannot convince your Facebook friends to vote for your game, later on you won't be able to convince 50,000 people to actually buy it. And this, the last thing, is probably the biggest and kind of the most mean myth out there. If you're going to talk with independent developers that start their journey, they're going to tell you that, well, yeah, you have to go through this Greenlight thing, but only once. While the nasty truth is that you're going to be passing it on as many times as the mighty Lord Gable tells you to. In fact, once you start your game dev account on Steam, one of GameOn's angels is going to be assigned to you to guide you through dark. And actually, this person is going to tell you how many times, and if at all, you need to pass Steam Greenlight. Now, if you're working on a VR game, for example, you have a very good chance of not being forced to go through Greenlight at all, simply because Steam is kind of supporting it very, very heavily. So they're just going to contact you, and they're going to tell you that if this game is going to be released as a VR title, you're gonna, have the gates to Steam Heaven open within 2 days and no green light at all. On the other hand, you might be told that, yes, indeed, you only need to pass it once. Usually it depends on your sales results. So you pass it, you sell your game, you make Lord GameOn very, very happy man, and even richer than he already is. And then they're going to tell you that you only had to pass it once, it's all good. But if you suck badly, then you're going to be convicted to pass this whole green light thing over and over and over again until you learn how to make it right. Just to make an important point here as well, actually there are some developers out there who decide to do it every time with every of their games, even though they don't have to, simply because it's a great community building tool and promoting your game and actually reaching out to people who already are interested and going to be buyers in the future. So this is like they kind of make an advantage of the whole process, and they do it even though they have to. And of course, it also may happen that an extreme situation going to happen to you, and by extreme, I mean a title I was working on. Maybe some of you guys heard of it, a tiny little game called Hatred. We had a thing on Steam with this game because I actually was the one convincing developers that they should go and do Steam Greenlight. Because of course they can do self-publishing, they can sell it in their own store, but if you're not on Steam, then of course you're not existing, you won't reach a certain, sales numbers. We went on Steam. We were top 1 within a couple of hours with 2,000-3,000 votes like that. And then the team got an email from Steam saying that we are sorry to inform you, but we're taking the game down and we won't be selling it on our platform. So a huge PR crisis, which I had to take care of, because we instantly got in touch with all the Kotakus, IGNs, Polygons, hunting for a story, because it happened like the first time in history that Steam said we won't be distributing this game. What happened next, though, was even more amazing, because the team got a personal email from the mighty GameOn himself, saying that Steam is all about being creative and always been about being an open platform for anybody who's willing to do games there. And based on his personal decision, the game got back on Steam, and actually you can still buy it there. So what started as a PR catastrophe that I kind of evoked ended up as a huge PR success, actually, and then it only helped the game in terms of promotion. But I'm mentioning this just to let you know that pretty much Steam is the boss, and they can really do anything when it comes to Steam Greenlight. And this is exactly the reason why the rules behind Greenlight are so vague, that when you go to all the fact section and you see all the answers and questions, there are no real information there. This is exactly why, because Steam decides per project whether or not you're going to be available there. If you guys have any questions, this is the time to ask them. If not, you can always catch me later on somewhere on the show floor.
Any questions? Oh, okay, 1 second.
I have a weird question. Do you think controversy is a good way to promote your game? For example, like Hatred was pretty much, it got hyped because of a controversy it got.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. There is a term in PR which is called, and I'm sure you guys heard of it, it's called black PR. Now, you may not like it, you may not agree with the fact that it's there, but then the truth is it works. Whether you decide to use the tool or not, that's totally your decision. You just have to remember that it's pretty hard tool to use, and you have to be very, very careful, because PR is a long-term thing. It's not about what do you do right now and how do you promote your game today, because you're going to be developing next titles. You want to be on the market 10, 5, 15 years from now. So always be careful thinking, how does the decision you make right now impact your future, pretty much. Now, the Hatred guys, they really knew what they wanted to achieve, and I was actually the one trying to calm them down and say that maybe eventually we shouldn't be so harsh and just go, you know, so big about this. But they were like, no, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, okay, guys, you hire me, I do the job, I only kind of warn you what impact this may have in the future. But to answer your question, Black PR is still PR. It's a tool that you use. You just need to be very careful about it, and you need to know how will this impact your future. You just have to count pros and cons against it, and then make a solid decision if it's for you or not. Definitely, this is not for everybody. Any more questions?
Well, where will I be able to meet you?
Well, Facebook is one place. No, honestly, I'm going to be right here. So if anybody wants to chat with me, I'm going to be for a couple of minutes here, right outside the hall. So we can chat there.
Hey, so basically, I understand this is more Greenlight related, but though we see that we have a lot of independent markets like itch.io, do you think they can be a competitors to Steam one day, or should
Absolutely
the indie
not.
developer?
No chance.
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
At this point, sorry to tell you, and sorry
No,
to
it's
be
fine.
so direct, but here's the deal. We already have like tons of similar digital stores. Steam is one. The guys were the first and are the biggest. Then there's like long and deep and dark hole when it's nothing. Then there's GOG. And then there are several different stuff like the one you mentioned, but also Little Green Men, also GameStop is doing digital distribution, Amazon these days, lots of other platforms. But really, the sales results there are niche. So you only are there because, okay, there's a certain amount of people that are actually buying from this specific digital platform. But like I said, 125 million users, like seriously, and that was a year ago. I'm pretty sure that it's growing like rapidly. So Steam has not and won't have any competitors unless somebody can figure out something really unique. Even GOG wasn't original enough with their DRM-free system. That was still not enough. Compared to Steam sales numbers, GOG is way, way down still. So unless, you know, a miracle happens and some genius shows up and says like, dang, we're gonna do this way, nothing gonna change.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
We had more questions? No, from this side?
Yeah.
Okay, Charles. Do you think Steam has a problem with games discoverability, given that so many games are being released into it?
Steam has a bunch of problems, and this is actually only one of them. Yeah. I mean, anybody, I'm pretty sure all of us here, or most of us, has Steam account, and most of the stuff you can find there at this point, with all due respect to developers who are creating that kind of stuff, is crap. I mean, let's face it. There's tons of games who never are being supported, tons of games who never gonna leave Steam Early Access, tons of VR games that you don't even wanna play. And this is actually, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but a couple, I think years now, the last time I spoke with Valve about it was like 2 years ago, when they announced that they're gonna be closing the whole Greenlight thing, and they're gonna figure out a completely different way of getting games to Steam. And since then, they're silent. Nothing ever changed, because they haven't even figured out how else they should deal with the problem. It's like you said, there's lots of lovely games out there, but they being piled up by a crap stuff that you can find there. So the whole Greenlight thing is not ideal, just because, like I told you. Actually, I haven't mentioned that, but it used to be, like a couple of years back, that you needed 15,000 votes. 15,000 people have to give you like a yes vote to get greenlit. Now you need like 300, which is nothing. I could do like, hire somebody, do a Unity game, ask my Facebook friends to vote for it, and that's it. Which is a part of a huge problem that if you create like a fantastic content, you have to compete with all the other stuff, and not in terms of quality, but in terms of numbers. There's just so many games out there that nobody can handle it anymore. Neither press, no gamers, nor Steam themselves.
I guess the problem is that people can't find the games they would love.
Yeah, absolutely, because you have this whole feature thing, theoretically, that, Steam can support you and put your game on the top rudder, or give you a banner or something. But again, they have like a whole promo packages for whoever is actually launching on Steam. And if you ever launched a game on Steam, you probably noticed that most likely whatever you do, you're gonna be on most popular because you've just released, and you're gonna get a tiny banner here and there because it's a part of the package. So what I'm trying to say is that if every game is promoted in exactly the same way in terms of tools Steam has, then this actually means that no game is promoted at all.
Sorry, one more question. This time more Steam related. Asking this for a friend, obviously. So imagine if my friend made a poor-looking Greenlight page, and then my friend repented, and then he improved his counter-look of the game. Should he start a new Greenlight, or should he?
That's a very good question, actually. With no easy answer attached to it. I'd say it depends how well or how badly he was doing beforehand. So let's say the page was poor, but still there was a certain number of people already commenting on it and posting, and there was a certain amount of community. Then it's better to actually upgrade and rebuild rather than, throw out the whole thing through the window and start all over again, because this means you need to start building the community and kind of traffic them to the new place all over again, which is always hard. But if the website was pretty much empty, like the Steam Greenlight one, not getting any much views and like 2 comments, and both of them be your friend's grandmother and his brother, then definitely just forget about it, rename the whole thing, rebuild it, look what's trending currently. Like, for example, you shouldn't be using like aesthetic pictures of icons of games, but GIFs may work way better. So look how other people who are actually somewhere on top charts work, try to do the similar thing, but of course prepared for your audience and your game.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.